The old copper ring sat on Ju Park's finger as she carefully cleaned a small stone statue at the Seoul Museum of Ancient History. The ring caught the light, its strange patterns shifting slightly as if alive. Ju smiled at the familiar weight of it. Her grandmother had given it to her on her 18th birthday, 10 years ago. "This has been in our family for many generations," grandmother had said, her eyes twinkling. "It will protect you." Ju had thought it was just a sweet thing to say about an old family treasure. She had no idea how right her grandmother had been. After finishing her work, Ju locked up the museum's back office and headed home to her small apartment. The spring air felt cool on her face as she walked. She thought about ordering food for dinner, too tired to cook after a long day cataloging new artifacts. Her apartment building was quiet when she arrived. As she put her key in the lock, she noticed something odd. The door was already unlocked. Ju frowned. She always locked her door. Always. She pushed it open slowly, her heart beating fast. Inside, her apartment was a mess. Drawers pulled out, books thrown from shelves, furniture moved. But strangely, her laptop and television were still there. Her jewelry box sat open on her dresser, expensive pieces untouched. "That's not a normal break-in," she whispered to herself, backing out to call the police. The officers who came took notes and looked around, but seemed confused. "Nothing stolen. Are you sure?" one asked. "Yes," Ju said. "It doesn't make sense." After they left, promising to patrol the area more frequently, Ju cleaned up her apartment and tried to forget about it. Maybe it was just kids causing trouble. 2 days later, a tall man in an expensive suit stopped her on her way to work. "That's a beautiful ring," he said, pointing to her copper band. "I collect unusual jewelry. I would give you 5 million won for it." Ju blinked in surprise. That was almost $4,000 for a ring that looked like old copper. "I'm sorry, it's a family heirloom. Not for sale." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. 10 million won. Then. "No thank you," Ju said firmly, walking away quickly. Later that week, it happened again. A woman with unnaturally bright blue eyes offered her 30 million won. Then an elderly man with a strange accent offered her enough money to buy a house. Ju began to look at her grandmother's ring differently. What made it so valuable to these strangers? She studied it more carefully, noticing how the patterns seemed to change slightly depending on the light. Sometimes they looked like words in a language she didn't recognize. Other times, they resembled star maps. She called her mother. "Do you know anything special about grandmother's ring?" Her mother sounded surprised. "Only that it's been passed down through the women in our family for generations." "Why?" "People keep trying to buy it. For a lot of money." "Don't sell it," her mother said quickly. "Grandmother would be very upset." That night, Ju woke suddenly. Her bedroom was dark, but something felt wrong. She lay still, listening. There was a soft sound near her bed, breathing that wasn't her own. Slowly, she turned her head and screamed. A tall figure stood beside her bed. Its skin glowed faintly in the darkness, with an iridescent blue-green light. It had no hair, and its eyes were large and black, without whites. It was reaching for her hand, for her ring. Ju yanked her hand away and scrambled back against the headboard. The creature made a soft clicking sound and reached again. Suddenly, the ring on her finger grew warm. A pulse of golden light burst from it, pushing the creature back. It made a high-pitched sound of surprise and pain. "Who are you? What do you want?" Ju asked, her voice shaking. The creature spoke, its voice unnaturally deep. "The key. Give me the ring key." "What key?" "This is just a family ring." The creature tilted its head. "You do not know. The ring key opens the great library, all knowledge of the 7 galaxies, worth more than all the treasure on your small planet." Ju stared at the creature, then at her ring. This opens some kind of alien library. Not just any library. the knowledge of the ancestors, who became pure energy 100,000 years ago, the most valuable object in known space. The creature took a step forward again, but the ring pulsed once more, keeping it at a distance. "Why can't you take it?" Ju asked. "The key chooses its bearer. It has chosen you. It protects you. I cannot take it by force." The creature's voice sounded frustrated. "But there are others coming who will try different methods. You are in danger, human. Others? Many others, from many worlds. All want the key. Some will try to buy. Some will try to steal. Some will try to take you with it." Ju felt cold fear wash over her. "What should I do?" The creature seemed surprised by the question. "You ask me. I came to take the key." "But you can't," Ju said. "And now you're warning me about others. Why?" The creature was quiet for a moment. "The key chose you. This has meaning. Perhaps you are meant to use it. Use it how? I don't even know what it does. It responds to the mind of its bearer. If you learn to control it, you can access the library." The creature moved toward the window. "I must go. Others are coming. They have detected the key's energy pulse." It turned back to look at Ju. "You should leave this place. Go somewhere safe. Learn to use the key before they find you." With surprising grace, the tall being slipped through her window and disappeared into the night. Ju sat on her bed, heart racing, looking at the simple copper ring on her finger. 15 generations of her family had worn it, passing it down. Had they known what it really was? She packed quickly, throwing clothes and necessities into a bag. As she worked, she noticed the patterns on the ring shifting more actively than before, as if awakened by the encounter. For a moment, they formed what looked like a map, then shifted back to abstract patterns. Ju understood now why her apartment had been searched, why strangers had offered small fortunes for a seemingly worthless ring. It wasn't worthless at all. It was the most valuable object in 7 galaxies, and for some reason, it had chosen her. As dawn broke, Ju Park slipped out of her apartment, carrying only one bag. The ring on her finger felt warmer now, almost alive. Whatever this great library was, whatever knowledge the ring could access, she needed to understand it before others found her. Her life had changed forever, and somewhere deep inside, despite her fear, she felt a thrill of excitement. The universe was much bigger than she had ever imagined. And somehow, she was now part of something ancient and powerful. Ju rushed through the crowded night market, clutching her small bag of belongings. 3 days had passed since the strange glowing being had visited her apartment. She hadn't gone home since then, staying instead in cheap motels and paying with cash. The ring on her finger felt warm, almost pulsing with energy. She stopped at a food stall, ordering a simple meal. As she waited, she noticed 2 people across the market watching her. They looked human, but something about their movements seemed wrong, too smooth and coordinated. When they began walking toward her, Ju abandoned her food and slipped into the crowd. "Too many," she whispered to herself, noticing more watchers appearing at the market edges. Some had the same 2 perfect movements. Others seemed to shimmer slightly, as if they weren't fully solid. Ju ducked into a small side street and ran. Behind her, she heard footsteps speeding up. She turned another corner and found herself facing a dead end. Heart pounding, she turned to see 3 figures blocking her escape. "The key bearer," said the tallest one, a woman with silver hair that seemed to move on its own. "Give us the Nexus ring, and you may live." Ju backed up against the wall. "I don't know what you're talking about." The woman smiled coldly. "The ring on your finger. The most valuable object in the 7 galaxies. It belongs with the Shade Collective, not with a primitive human." "I think she might prefer our offer," said a new voice. A man stepped out of the shadows, his skin faintly blue. 2 others appeared beside him. "The Blue Star Group offers protection and cooperation, not threats." The silver-haired woman hissed, "Stay out of this, Blue Star." Ju pressed herself against the wall as the 2 groups faced each other. Neither seemed fully human up close. The silver-haired woman's eyes were completely black, while the blue-skinned man had strange markings on his face that seemed to glow. "The ring chooses its bearer," said yet another voice. Everyone turned to see a small, thin person dressed in gray. They seemed to appear from nowhere. "The Echo Guild respects this ancient truth. You cannot take it by force. We can take its bearer," the silver-haired woman said with a cruel smile. As the three groups argued, Ju felt the ring grow hot on her finger. It pulsed once, and a golden light spread from it, forming a bubble around her. The alien stepped back in surprise. A loud engine sound filled the alley. Headlights appeared at the entrance, and a small car skidded to a stop. The driver's door flew open. "Get in," shouted a man's voice. Now, Ju didn't hesitate. She ran for the car, the golden bubble moving with her. The aliens tried to grab her, but their hands slid off the light barrier. She jumped into the car, and it sped away before she could even close the door. "Are you hurt?" asked the driver, a man about her age with glasses and messy hair. "Who are you? How did you find me?" Ju demanded, ready to jump out if necessary. "Dr. Tahoe Kim. I've been tracking unusual energy signals for years," he explained, driving fast through the city streets. 3 days ago, there was a massive spike near your apartment building. Then smaller signals following you across the city. You've been following me. Following the energy." He glanced at her hand. "From that ring. It's the source, isn't it?" Ju hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Those people back there, they aren't human, are they?" "No," Tahoe said grimly. "And they're not the only ones looking for you. The city is full of them. The Blue Star Group, the Shade Collective, the Echo Guild, 3 factions of the Galactic Council. You know about them." Tahoe nodded. "I've been studying signals from space for years. Strong energy bursts coming from your grandmother's hometown first caught my attention. Did you know she lived near an ancient meteor crater?" Ju shook her head. "I never visited. My mother said grandmother moved to Seoul before I was born. That crater has been sending strange signals for decades. I tracked them to your family line." He glanced at her ring again. "That's not just jewelry, is it?" "It's called the Nexus Ring," Ju said quietly, "or the ring key. It supposedly opens something called the Great Library with the knowledge of the ancestors." Tahoe whistled. No wonder they all want it. They drove in silence for a while, leaving the city behind. Ju noticed they were heading into the mountains. "Where are we going?" "My research station. It's remote. Should be safe for a while." Tahoe adjusted his glasses. "They can track the ring's energy, but I've developed technology that might mask it." As they drove higher into the mountains, Ju saw strange lights in the sky, too fast and agile to be airplanes. "More aliens?" "Yes. They're searching." Tahoe pointed ahead. "We're almost there." The research station turned out to be a small cabin surrounded by satellite dishes and strange equipment. Inside was simple but comfortable, with one main room filled with computers and instruments. "You'll be safe here tonight," Tahoe said, activating what looked like a metal umbrella on the roof. "This should block the ring's energy signature." Ju sank into a chair, exhausted. "Why are you helping me?" "I've spent my career studying signals from space, trying to prove we're not alone." Tahoe smiled. "Now I know we're not, but I also know some of not alone wants to hurt you. That's not right." Ju looked at her ring. In the cabin's light, the pattern seemed more active, almost forming images before shifting again. "It's responding to you," Tahoe observed, "becoming more active. The alien in my apartment said it chose me." Ju frowned. "But why? I'm nobody special." Tahoe studied her thoughtfully. "Maybe the ring sees something you don't yet." He sat across from her. "These past few years, I've intercepted transmissions, decoded alien languages. The Nexus Ring isn't just a key to knowledge. It's a test. A test." The ancestors were the first advanced civilization in our part of the galaxy. They evolved beyond physical form over 100,000 years ago. Before leaving, they created the Great Library, all their knowledge, their history, their technology. But they didn't want it falling into the wrong hands. So they created the ring as a key, Ju said. More than that, the ring chooses who can access the library. It bonds with its bearer, becomes part of them. Tahoe leaned forward. The ring isn't just choosing you, Ju. It's revealing something within you that was already there. Ju looked down at the ancient copper band. What could it possibly see in me? Before Tahoe could answer, alarms began blaring. He rushed to his computers. They'd found us already. He said, the masking field should have worked longer. Outside, lights appeared in the sky, descending toward the cabin. On the monitors, Tahoe showed 3 different groups approaching. The blue-skinned aliens moving methodically through the trees, the silver-haired woman's group spreading out to surround them, and the gray-clad figures of the Eco Guild simply watching from a distance. We need to run, Ju said, standing up. No, Tahoe replied, surprising her. The ring chose you for a reason. Maybe it's time to find out why. The ring on Ju's finger grew warm again. This time, instead of a protective bubble, it projected patterns of light onto the cabin wall. The patterns shifted, formed symbols, then coalesced into what looked like a map of stars. It's trying to tell us something, Tahoe whispered in awe. Jumu felt a strange certainty growing inside her. The ring wasn't just an object. It was alive in some way, communicating with her. And now, surrounded by danger, it was time to listen. The aliens outside the cabin had moved closer, their strange lights cutting through the darkness. Ju and Tahoe huddled inside, watching the projected star map on the wall. The pattern shifted, showing unfamiliar constellations. What does it mean? Ju asked, staring at her ring. The copper band seemed to pulse with inner light. I think it's trying to communicate, Tahoe said. He adjusted his glasses and pointed to his equipment. The energy readings are incredible. The cabin shook as something heavy landed on the roof. Dust fell from the ceiling. They heard footsteps, then voices speaking in strange languages. We don't have much time, Tahoe whispered. They'll break in soon. Jumu looked at the ring again. An idea came to her, something she hadn't tried before. Maybe I need to focus on it. Really focus. She sat on the floor and closed her eyes. She concentrated on the ring, picturing its shifting patterns in her mind. At first, nothing happened. Then she felt warmth spreading from the ring up her arm. It's working, Tahoe whispered. The energy readings are changing. Juwu barely heard him. In her mind, the patterns from the ring were becoming clearer. They weren't random. They were a language, ancient and complex. As she focused, the meaning of the patterns began to make sense, like remembering words from a forgotten dream. The cabin and Tahoe faded from her awareness. Juwu found herself standing in a vast space filled with light. Before her stretched endless shelves containing not books but glowing orbs of energy. Each orb pulsed with different colors and intensities. A voice spoke, not in her ears but directly in her mind. Welcome, bearer. You have begun to access the index of the Great Library. Who are you? Ju asked, her voice echoing strangely. I am Keeper, the guide to the library. The ring you wear is the key, the connection between your world and this repository of knowledge. Ju looked around in wonder. All these orbs, their knowledge. The collected wisdom of the ancestors, preserved for worthy civilizations. Each orb contains the complete understanding of a different field or world. Keeper led her through the endless shelves. Ju saw orbs labeled in strange symbols she somehow understood. Stellar engineering, consciousness transfer, planetary healing. May I see one? She asked. You may glimpse, but not retain. Your mind and the key are still forming their connection. Keeper guided her to a blue-green orb. This contains knowledge of energy creation without resource consumption. When Ju touched it, information flooded her mind. She saw machines that pulled energy from the fabric of space itself. She understood how they worked, how they could power entire civilizations without harming worlds. The orb slipped from her fingers. "That's amazing," she breathed. "There is much more," Keeper said, leading her to another section, including the true history of your own world. A small golden orb floated before her. When Ju touched it, she saw Earth's past, how the ancestors had visited long ago, helping early humans, leaving traces of their knowledge. She saw how other alien species had come later, some helping, some harming, all shaping human development more than anyone realized. As the vision faded, Keeper spoke again. "The Great Library contains knowledge that could advance your people by millennia, or destroy them, if misused. That is why the key chooses carefully." "Why me?" Ju asked. "I'm just a museum curator. You preserve knowledge. You respect the past. You seek understanding rather than power." Keeper's voice grew softer. "And your family line has guarded the key for generations, waiting for one who could fully activate it." Suddenly, Ju felt a pulling sensation. "Something's happening. Your physical form is in danger. The rival factions have found you. You must return." "But I have so many questions." "The connection is forming. You will return when you are ready." Keeper's form began to fade. "The key will change now, revealing its true nature. Use it wisely." Ju felt herself rushing back, as if flying through space at impossible speed. She gasped and opened her eyes. The cabin came back into focus. Taiho was shaking her shoulder. "Ju, can you hear me? You've been in a trance for almost an hour." She blinked, adjusting to the dim light. Outside, she could hear the aliens arguing among themselves. "I saw it, Taiho," she whispered. "The Great Library. It's real. It's filled with knowledge beyond anything we can imagine." Taiho pointed to her hand. "Look at your ring." Ju looked down. The simple copper band had changed. In its center now sat a small blue stone that glowed with inner light. The patterns around it were clearer, more defined. "This is incredible," Taiho said, scanning the ring with his equipment. "The energy signature has completely changed." And he looked at his readings with wide eyes. "It's coming from you too now. You and the ring are both emitting the same energy pattern. You're becoming its conduit," he whispered in awe. "The ring is transforming you as much as you're activating it." Ju stood up, feeling strange new energy flowing through her body. Knowledge from the library lingered in her mind, not everything she had seen, but fragments like the memory of a dream. The cabin door shook as something pounded against it. The blue-skinned aliens from the Blue Star group called out in accented Korean. "Key-bearer, the Shade agents have weapons. Let us protect you." From another side of the cabin, the silver-haired woman shouted, "Surrender the key to the Shade Collective. We alone know how to use its power properly." The silent figures of the Eco Guild had somehow appeared on Taiho's viewing screens, inside the security perimeter without triggering alarms. Taiho looked at Ju with fear. "What do we do? We're surrounded." Ju raised her hand, looking at the transformed ring. She remembered what Keeper had told her about its power, about why it had chosen her. She felt a new confidence flowing through her. "We face them," she said. "The ring has shown me something important. These factions have been searching for the library for thousands of years, but none of them understand its true purpose, which is to share knowledge with those who will use it wisely." Ju walked toward the door. The ancestors didn't want one species to have all their wisdom. They wanted cooperation, not competition. The door shuddered again as something heavy slammed against it. "Are you sure about this?" Taiho asked, following her. Ju nodded. The ring glowed brighter on her finger, responding to her certainty. "The library showed me things about Earth's past and its possible futures. We have a place in the wider galaxy, but only if we can prove ourselves worthy." She placed her hand on the door. feeling the connection between herself and the ring growing stronger. Knowledge flowed between them, becoming clearer. "And I think," she said quietly, "this is our chance to start proving it." The door burst open, and the night filled with strange lights as the three alien factions converge. The ring on Juwoo's finger pulsed once, twice, and then blazed with blue-white light that spread around her like a shield. She stepped forward to meet them, no longer afraid. The library's knowledge might not be fully hers yet, but she understood enough to know what came next. Earth's first true contact with the galaxy beyond was about to begin, and somehow she was at the center of it all. Juwoo stood in the doorway of the cabin, the transformed ring glowing brightly on her finger. Three distinct groups of aliens faced her in the clearing. The night air felt charged with tension. The Blue Star group stood to her left, 5 tall beings with faintly blue skin and intricate markings that seemed to shift across their bodies. Their leader stepped forward, arms spread in a gesture of peace. "Key bearer," he said in perfect Korean. "I am Duri of the Blue Star Group. We offer protection and partnership. The Shade Collective cannot be trusted with the library's knowledge." To her right, the silver-haired woman and 6 others from the Shade Collective formed a tight formation. Their bodies seemed to blur at the edges, as if not fully solid. "Lies," hissed the silver-haired leader. "I am Neri of the Shade. We alone have the technology to properly use the library. Surrender the key to us, or your primitive planet will face consequences." Behind them all, silent and watchful, stood 3 figures in gray. The Echo Guild members made no move to approach, their faces hidden beneath simple hoods. Tahoe stood behind Juwoo, his scientific equipment beeping wildly as it measured energy levels. "The ring's power is growing," he whispered. "It's responding to their presence." Neri of the Shade took a step forward, her hand reaching toward a weapon at her side. "Enough talk. Give us the key, human." Duri of the Blue Star shifted into a defensive stance. "Touch her and the Galactic Council will hold you accountable for breaking the non-interference treaty." "Treaties mean nothing compared to the library's power," Neri snapped. Juwoo felt new knowledge flowing through her mind. Fragments from the library showing her these factions, their histories, their long search for the key. She saw how their civilizations had grown and changed over thousands of years. She understood their desperation to find the library. The Shade Leader's hand moved to her weapon. In that moment, several things happened at once. The Blue Star agents lunged forward, the Echo Guild members raised their hands, and Juwoo felt the ring growing hot on her finger. Acting on instinct rather than thought, Juwoo raised her hand. The blue stone in her ring flared with brilliant light. A pulse of energy shot outward in a perfect circle, knocking all the aliens backward. They fell to the ground, stunned but unharmed. A profound silence followed. Juwoo stepped forward, the ring still glowing. Knowledge from the library flowed more freely now, helping her understand what was happening, what had always been happening. "For 2,000 years, you've searched for this ring," she said, her voice stronger and clearer than she'd ever heard it. "You've fought wars over rumors of its location. You've sent your best agents across the galaxy." The aliens rose slowly to their feet, watching her with newfound caution. "But none of you understand its true purpose," Juwoo continued. "The ring doesn't unlock knowledge to be used by any single species. It identifies those worthy of sharing it." The blue stone pulsed, and suddenly a projection appeared above them all, a 3-dimensional map of stars with Earth clearly marked at its center. Lines connected Earth to worlds belonging to all 3 factions, forming a network. The ancestors didn't want their knowledge hoarded by one civilization. Juwoo explained, understanding flowing through her from the ring. They believed in connection, in cooperation. The library isn't a weapon or a tool for dominance. It's a gift to be shared. Neri of the Shade scoffed. "Humans know nothing of galactic politics. You're barely space-capable. The library's knowledge would be wasted on your kind." "Perhaps that's true today," Juwoo acknowledged. But the ring has shown me that humanity was always meant to join the galactic community. Not yet, but when we've proven ourselves worthy. One of the silent Echo Guild members finally spoke, their voice soft but carrying clearly. The bearer speaks truth. The ancestors designed the key as a test, not just for the bearer, but for all who seek the library. Duri of the Blue Star looked thoughtful. A test of cooperation. Is that why no single faction has ever accessed the library? Yes, Ju said, certainty in her voice. The ancestors left this galaxy physically, but they wanted to ensure their knowledge would benefit all species who were ready to use it wisely, not just the strongest or most advanced. The star map above them shifted, showing historical events, brief flashes of how the three factions had fought, spied on each other, and raced to find the key before others could. For 2 millennia, you've been failing the test, Ju said softly. The library cannot be accessed through force or deception, only through genuine cooperation. Nari laughed coldly. A pretty speech, human. But the Shade Collective doesn't share power. Then you will never access the library, the Echo Guild member stated simply. Tahoe had been watching silently, recording everything with his equipment. Now he stepped forward to stand beside Ju. If what Ju says is true, then this changes everything about how we understand the galaxy, he said. Not as competing powers, but as potential partners. Duri nodded slowly. The Blue Star Group has always valued knowledge exchange. Perhaps we have been approaching this wrongly. This is absurd, Nari snapped. The human knows nothing. The key is simply malfunctioning because of her primitive biology. As she spoke, the ring flashed, and another vision appeared above them. The great library itself, its vast collection of knowledge orbs stretching endlessly. The image was so real, so detailed, that all the aliens fell silent in awe. I have seen it, Ju said quietly. The library is real. Its knowledge could transform all our worlds, but only if we work together. One of the Echo Guild stepped forward and lowered their hood, revealing a face with features that seemed to shift and change, never settling on one form. We of the Echo have suspected this truth for centuries, they said. The key does not choose randomly. It chooses those who can bring unity. Duri looked at Ju with new respect. If the Blue Star Group agrees to cooperation, what happens next? Ju closed her eyes, listening to the knowledge flowing from the ring. The library will begin to share its wisdom gradually, through me as its conduit. Not all at once, that would be too dangerous, but piece by piece, as we prove we can use it responsibly. Nari and the Shade agents exchanged glances. Ju could see the conflict in their expressions, their desire for power battling with their hunger for knowledge. And if we refuse this cooperation, Nari asked finally, then you get nothing, Ju said simply. The key has chosen me. It cannot be taken by force. The library cannot be accessed without me. The star map above them shifted again, showing Earth and highlighting its position. For the first time, all the aliens seemed to truly see the small blue planet as something more than a backwater world. Humanity was always meant to be part of this, Ju said, understanding flowing through her. Our world stands at a crossroads. We have the potential for greatness or destruction. The ancestors saw this millennia ago. They left the key here as a bridge, not just to knowledge, but to the wider galaxy. Tahoe stepped forward. As a scientist, I offer Earth's commitment to this cooperation. We have much to learn, but also perspectives to share. As the night deepened around them, the three alien factions faced a choice centuries in the making. The ring on Ju's finger continued to glow, its blue light illuminating faces both human and alien. In that light, their differences seemed less important than what might unite them. The future of not just Earth but many worlds hung in the balance, waiting for them to decide. 6 months had passed since the night of the cabin. The world looked the same to most people, but for Ju Park, everything had changed. She walked through a hidden door in the back of an ordinary office building in Seoul. The security scanner read her biometrics and the unique energy signature of her ring. The blue stone glowed softly as the hidden elevator descended deep underground. When the doors opened, Ju stepped into Earth's first interspecies embassy. The large underground complex housed representatives from the Blue Star Group, the Shade Collective, and the Echo Guild. After tense negotiations following that night in the mountains, all three factions had agreed to a historic treaty. They would work together with selected humans to gradually share knowledge from the library. Ambassador Park greeted Dury of the Blue Star as she entered the main chamber. His blue skin seemed to shimmer under the lights. "The council is ready for your report." Ju nodded and followed him into a circular room where representatives from each faction waited, along with 5 humans, scientists and leaders chosen for their wisdom and discretion. Taeho sat among them, now the head of Earth's new Cosmic Science Division. "The first phase of knowledge integration has been successful," Ju announced. "The renewable energy technology from the library has been adapted and introduced through 3 different research companies. They believe they invented it themselves." One of the human representatives, an older woman who had once been a world leader, looked impressed. "The new solar panels are already changing lives in developing regions, and no one suspects their true origin." "As it should be," said the Eco Guild representative. "Humanity must believe it is advancing through its own efforts. Too much external knowledge too quickly would cause chaos." Nari of the Shade Collective, who had reluctantly joined the cooperation, leaned forward. "When will the next phase begin? We have waited patiently, but our worlds need the medical knowledge the library promised." Ju touched her ring thoughtfully. Since the night at the cabin, her connection to the great library had grown stronger. She could access more of its knowledge now, understanding complex concepts that would have been impossible for her before. "The ring is setting the pace," she explained. "It releases information when we prove we can handle the previous knowledge responsibly. The medical advances will come, but first we need to establish stronger foundations." After the meeting, Taeho joined Ju in her private office. The walls were covered with strange symbols, the language of the ancestors that only she could now read. "Another trip tomorrow?" he asked, noticing her packed bag. Ju nodded. "The Blue Star are taking me to their homeworld. The council wants me to address their science academy." Taeho smiled. "Earth's secret ambassador to the stars. Do you ever miss your old life at the museum?" "Sometimes," Ju admitted. "Simple problems like how to preserve ancient pottery seem easier than balancing the needs of 4 different species." The ring pulsed on her finger, as if responding to her thoughts. Over the months, it had changed her in subtle ways. Her mind worked differently now. Faster, clearer, with access to knowledge that stretched back millions of years. Yet she remained fully human, the bridge between Earth and the wider galaxy. The next morning, Ju boarded a Blue Star vessel hidden in the mountains outside Seoul. Unlike the ships in human science fiction films, it was organic in design, almost alive. As they rose into the atmosphere, Earth quickly shrank below them. "We will reach Blue Star Prime in 3 days," the pilot informed her. "Faster than our previous journeys. We have implemented some of the propulsion knowledge from the library." Ju smiled. This was exactly what the ancestors had intended: gradual, responsible sharing of knowledge that benefited all. Even the once hostile Shade Collective had begun to see the wisdom in cooperation. As they cleared Earth's orbit, Ju stood at the viewing portal, watching her home planet grow smaller. The continents were clearly visible, the blue oceans shining in the sunlight. Taeho joined her, his eyes wide with wonder. This was only his 2nd journey to space. "Look at that," he whispered. "Everything we've ever known, everyone we've ever loved, all on that small blue planet. It won't always be that way," Ju said. "The library has shown me glimpses of humanity's future. In time, we'll have our own ships. We'll join the Galactic Council as equals." "How long?" Taeho asked. Ju touched her ring. The blue stone glowed warmly. Decades, perhaps. The ring is patient. It measures time in centuries, not years. As they watched, the first rays of sun appeared over Earth's curve, creating a stunning sunrise from orbit. The planet seemed to glow with new promise. "We're not ready for everything yet," she told Tahoe as they watched the beautiful scene. "But we will be." Back on Earth, most humans went about their daily lives, unaware of the changes happening around them. New technologies appeared that solved old problems. Strange weather patterns that had threatened crops suddenly stabilized. Medical researchers reported breakthrough discoveries they couldn't quite explain. Small changes, carefully introduced. The ring guided Juwu in choosing which knowledge to share and when. Some of the library's wisdom, particularly its more destructive potential, would remain locked away for generations until humanity proved itself truly ready. In her apartment in Seoul, which she now rarely visited, Juwu kept a small display case. Inside was a simple photograph of her grandmother, the woman who had passed the ring to her, who had trusted her with humanity's greatest inheritance without ever explaining its true nature. "Did you know?" Juwu sometimes asked the photograph. "Did you understand what you were giving me?" She would never know for certain. But the ring had chosen her family line for 15 generations, waiting for the right moment, the right bearer. Now it had found its purpose. As Juwu and Tahoe continued their journey to the Blue Star homeworld, the ring on her finger pulsed with gentle light, no longer hiding. It had found exactly where it belonged, connecting humanity's present to a future among the stars, when they would finally be prepared to access the full library of cosmic wisdom that was their birthright. Earth's secret first steps into the galactic community had begun, and Juwu Park, once a simple museum curator, now carried the future of her entire species on her finger.